and he's joining us on the government's first 100 days. Mr. Scindia, good evening from Bengaluru and the team here at Republic. The first 100 days of the third Modi government, Mr. Scindia. What are the big headlines for you?
Well, firstly, Niranjan, the third term will be a historical term under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. He has very clearly articulated to the people of India that this third term will certainly involve much more effort, much more result-oriented government, and with a vision that higher goals will result in higher performance and a higher impact. And with that frame of mind, the work has already started and is underway. It is our resolve that government has to be transformative, which is what Prime Minister Modi has very clearly outlined. And transformative means you must start from the get-go. The last 100 days have been a hallmark in terms of development and progress across the spectrum of activity of government that you see. If you look at the empowerment of women, where on the one hand, close to about 11 lakh more women have become Lakpati Didis. At the same time, the budget has enshrined in it close to a 3 lakh crore allotment for our women across the length and breadth of our country. Mudra loans have been increased from 10 lakhs to 20 lakhs. When you look at the sector of making sure that you bring about social change and social development through the PM Janamana Yojana, close to about 406 new universities in terms of Eklavya Vidyalayas have been set up, which have almost enrolled close to about 1.23 lakh new students. And along with that, under the PM Janamana Yojana, close to 112 aspirational districts and close to 500 aspirational blocks. Full saturation across 11 segments have already taken place. Along with that, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, our resolve of building 3 crore new more houses in the next 5 years. The budget allocation through the cabinet has already been put in place for 1 crore urban houses and 2 crore rural houses at close to about 3.5 lakh crores in terms of a budget allocation. For the youth, new paradigms have taken root, where youth will be given internships across companies across India. Along with that, close to about 4 crore new youth will be trained through vocational training in 1,000 new industrial centers, and along with that, really developing India's nodes for tomorrow, industrial and manufacturing nodes for tomorrow. Close to about 12 nodes have been chosen. This year has seen the highest capex been allocated, close to about 11.11 lakh crore, which has never been seen before. And the repercussions of that have been seen in infrastructure. Road, rail, surface transport, airways have been allocated almost 3 lakh crores in the budget. Close to 8 new highway sections costing 50,000 crores have been given approval. 8 new railway sections costing 24,000 crores have been given approval. 15 new Vande Bharat trains have been already flagged off. And close to about 50,000 crores under the Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana to close to 25,000 villages being given access by roads. Almost 62,000 kilometers has already been allocated. Along with that, if you look at making sure that every part of society is well looked after, the tax break being increased from 50,000 rupees to 75,000 rupees of tax break with a 7 lakh no taxation initiative for income being put in place. Along with that, the new UPS scheme, which will affect almost 23 lakh government servants and benefit them with almost about 50% determined pension. And along with that, anyone who's 70 years older and above will also be included in the Ayushman Bharat Bima Yojana, which will cover almost 6 crore of our elderly people across the length and breadth of our country. Farmers too have been given tremendous initiatives and incentives in the last 100 days, whether it's the unveiling of 109 new hybrid varieties of seeds, whether it is the PM Kisan Samman Yojana, where close to 20,000 crores has been given to almost about 9 crore farmers, whether it is through new schemes of Government of India, where close to about, for the Polavaram scheme, for example, on irrigation, where close to about 12,000 crores has been allocated. So across the length and breadth of government, there have been tremendous initiatives that have taken place in the last 100 days.
Mr. Scindia, I'm sitting here in Bengaluru and in Karnataka. I can tell you, when we run a channel here called Republic Kannada, and when we interact with people, and we have several shows which directly interface with people from the length and breadth of Karnataka, for example. And when you speak to the people, there are two narratives of politics here in Karnataka. I'll tell you. One is, of course, people believe in the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. They know that he's the strongest leader. And all that you've listed now, at the grassroots level, it has made a difference. I would say that because people talk about gas connections, people talk about free housing, and recently you had the insurance scheme for all senior citizens. There is one aspect of what people talk about when it comes to governance. The second aspect is the guarantees which are given by the state government. Of course, the state government itself is broke. There is no money for anything else when you bring in guarantees or give free schemes to people. So how do you strike a balance? When in the government, how do you strike a balance between the both, Mr. Scindia?
Well, what's very important, Niranjan, is you have to have a equanimity between, on the one hand, powering India forward, and therefore looking at high rates of economic growth, such as what Prime Minister Modi's government has delivered in the last financial year, almost 8.2% economic growth rate. And the compounding of that growth is what really transforms India. On the other hand, it is also extremely important to bring the disadvantaged and the economically weaker sections into the paradigm of opportunity, so that they can also contribute to the cause of nation building. If indeed our goal is to create a Viksit Bharat by 2047, then all hands need to be on deck, which means all 140 crore of us need to participate in that exercise. And therefore the emergent need is also to make sure that you proliferate these avenues of opportunity right down to the grassroots level. And therefore the Prime Minister's resolve, which has resulted in close to 25 crore people being lifted out of poverty over the last decade. In the last 75 years, you have never seen this sort of a transformation. And much of it comes from the opportunities that have been given at the grassroots level. And that's the transformation that India requires today. So on the one hand, it is to power economic growth, and the other hand, it is to bring people into the economic mainstream that will truly transform India. Now, the vicious circle and the irony is that those governments that have promised the OPS, the old pension scheme, many guarantees that were given in the Karnataka local election, in the Vidhan Sabha election, the Himachal Vidhan Sabha election, have not seen the light of day. Here you are seeing within the first 100 days of the third term of Prime Minister Modi, what has been promised has been delivered. And therefore you see the difference between truth of promises and conversion into action, and those that only say things on election day, whether it is the leadership of the Congress party or other political parties, which never sees the light of day, and therefore the hypocrisy of these parties comes to light when in comparison with the central government under Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
You spoke of, and whenever you or any minister like you, or including the Prime Minister, you've been at our summits, the Prime Minister has been at each of our Republic summits, and when he speaks, I still remember this year, just before the elections, he was there and he spoke of numbers. He gave us numbers of how much of money was going into infrastructure projects. Back then, when he attended the event in April, he spoke of how 1 lakh crore projects had just been sanctioned in the span of about 10 days. Now, if you go through the numbers, I'm not going to once contest the fact that money is being pushed into infra building, which is also amounting to nation building, because you're building cities, you're building towns, essentially. Now, what I also find fascinating, and maybe a welcome change, if I can call it that, is Mr. Scindia. It's perhaps the first time in the three governments, in Modi 1.0, Modi 2.0, Modi 3.0, we didn't see senior ministers being fielded on 100 days. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. But it also tells you effectively, in an age where social media political campaigns can drown anything, it's important to communicate. It's important to also tell people, remind people of what you have done. Is my reading correct?
Niranjan, you're absolutely right. And let me say this, that even in my last stint as Minister of Civil Aviation and Steel, I did report back to all of you and through all of you to the people of India in terms of the targets that had been set by the Prime Minister for our department and what we had achieved in the first 100 days. So I think the accountability standards that the Prime Minister has set for each of his departments and for his government as a whole, in the whole of government approach, I think on its own stands out as an outlier in terms of any other government that has been in power in India over the last 75 years. He has always held each of us accountable for our targets. He has held himself accountable, and when a leader holds himself accountable, then the trust of the people in that leader grows manifold when delivery happens, when action happens on the ground. And that is the difference between a NDA-led government of Prime Minister Modi and the opposition parties that mouth tremendous voices and tremendous promises, but actual delivery is yet to be seen on the ground. And there's a great chasm between what is committed and what actually is delivered. So on the other one hand, you have a leader that undercommits and over-delivers, and on the other hand, you have opposition parties that overcommit and under-deliver. And very clearly, the verdict of the people of India is in the favor of Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Very interesting. My last question to you, Mr. Scindia. You know, this third Modi government, of course, you have majority in the government, and there are many who question the fact that the BJP on its own was not able to cross the majority mark. But to all those critics who talk about the dangers of coalition politics, of course, I don't have to explain that, because you have been in another party, in another government in the past, and you may know what coalition politics pressure would be like, having worked there. But is there any coalition politics pressure on the current Prime Minister, or is he just determined to take India to its greatest height?
The NDA is comprised of a group of parties and people that are committed in their resolve only to one thing: the growth of India, the betterment of India, the transformation of India into Viksit Bharat and Atmanirbhar Desh. And in that sankalp, each and every constituent of the NDA is committed to that goal and to the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So this government and this coalition government and this NDA will ensure that our principles, our morals and our goals are actually all turn into reality. And the government speaks, and every constituent of this NDA speaks in one voice towards that goal.
Mr. Scindia, thank you for speaking to Republic TV as the Modi third government turns 100 days old. And it was interesting to hear from you. Look forward to perhaps catching up with you again for a longer conversation, perhaps. Mr. Scindia, thank you very much for this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.